What's up, Bitcoiners? Good morning. The sun, super duper up. Bitcoin, super duper running. All that's left to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. Good morning, Monty. Good morning. Good morning, Bitcoin Graffiti. Good morning, McTimmy. Bitcoin Graffiti says, great interview with Princey. If any of you don't know, I did a podcast recently, the Once Bitten podcast. If you have a chance, go listen. I'm going to talk a little bit about today about something I mentioned on the podcast if you don't have time to catch up, but there's a lot of good content there. It was a fun interview, and Princey's a great guy. Bud says, morning, Bud, morning. Justin says, good morning. A lot of mornings this morning. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for coming. We like having coffee together. A little bit of housekeeping before I get into Moscow time. We got a great Moscow time today. I was told 2 days ago and forgot to remind you all yesterday that I'll have the electricity turned off on my street for some repairs to something. So it won't be available tomorrow morning. So no show tomorrow morning. It starts at 8 a.m. here, and I'm an hour ahead of you. So I won't have power. So it's not going to happen. So I'll miss you all. So today is the last day before Monday where we can get one in. But luckily, Kamala Harris, right? You know, all this confusion about what's going on with Biden and is he going to make it? It looks like the media turned on him. We predicted on this show weeks ago already that it looked like they were going to turn on him just based on, the surface area of the websites, CNN and MSNBC, just because they were paying attention. We did several episodes just on the importance and power of framing and headlines and how much you can actually glean from the real news about what's in the headlines. So, everyone talking about Kamala, a lot more attention on her these days. So, and especially with what's going on in her home state of California, they've had incredible rain for a while. Apparently the snowpack at the top of the mountains in California is the largest it's ever been, or on record, or something like that. And so she went there to sort of talk about all the trouble, right? And luckily, in case the old guy with the brain who doesn't really work and maybe he's degenerating before eyes, luckily it's not going to be that big of a transition, because the words that come out of the vice president's mouth are really similar to what the president would say anyway, right? So it's not that different. So here's what she says about all the Greta stuff and the climate and everything, because she didn't get to go to WEF because she had to go do stuff like this. So here's what she says, right? The words of wisdom, right? This is our Moscow time of the day. She says, the issues that are present in the climate crisis are varied, and it requires us to be present and in front of each of the iterations and variations that include extreme weather that produces a lot of water and drought. I got it. That makes sense. You have to be present and in front of the iterations and the variations, right? And those include extreme weather, and that can be water or drought. Okay, great. She's the best on thoughts. It reminded me, Kamala on water really reminded me of the great SBF on boxes. We've all seen the SBF on boxes, right? You put money in a box, and then someone else has a box, and then you can take the money from that box and put it in another box. Remember Alan Farrington? All about boxes, right? So Kamala has really done the same here, but with water. So that's great news. Now, we talked about projection a couple episodes, and I had a lot of people reach out to me and say that was a really great insight. It's been working for me. Now that you said it, I can see it everywhere. And this example is just too good, so I had to bring it up. This is a couple of episodes ago, referring to us talking about projection and what it means and how you can see it and what it looks like, right? So here you have Sam Harris, the giga brain Sam Harris. Oh, he's so smart, right? He comes out and he because he quit Twitter, right? He quit Twitter a little while ago because he didn't like it there anymore. And now he's criticizing other people for spending time on Twitter. One of them is Elon Musk. So these are the words that came out of Sam Harris's mouth. No kidding. The guy who meditates too much, right? You know, Elon has criticized him before, right? Elon said, sometimes, Sam, meditate, you can meditate too much, right? Because Sam Harris is big into the meditation and all this stuff. And Elon once did criticize him on Twitter about, maybe you can meditate too much. But here's what Sam Harris said about Elon Musk. He goes, this is a man, this is what he really said, completely misusing his opportunity to live a fulfilling life. Those words came out of Sam Meditation Harris's mind, that Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk, that guy is missing an opportunity because he's trolling too much on Twitter. Now, I don't know if he's gandered over at Cape Canaveral recently, but I can't stop watching the not fulfilling life he's living has only normalized double rocket landing, not rocket landing, double basically coordinated simultaneous rocket landing. All right. Like, while he's going on about Twitter and people are concerned about his money and is he losing the money and we don't know about the money and all this stuff, he's landing rockets, rocket ships that land on the planet, on the surface of the planet, after delivering other rockets into space. And Sam Harris says that this guy is missing his chance, his opportunity to live a fulfilling. Well, if you need a good example, projection, there you go. Sam Harris left Twitter. So what he's saying here is spending time on Twitter is such a waste of time that even Elon Musk is wasting his time, right? So it doesn't matter that he set up companies that go and go to space and all that stuff, that he's completely outpaced the planet in putting satellites into space, that he's turned the tide of the the Ukraine war, I would say, based on the internet systems that he's provided with Starlink. I use Starlink at the farm. I have my complaints about it. It's not always the fastest connection, but I mean, what were people on farms in a random place like I live doing just 5 years ago, right? Messenger pigeons, right? We didn't have anything like this. So he made it literally, yes, P-Man Van. That's a good one. They come up. P-Man Van says, Elon is definitely an underachiever. So here's Sam Harris, right, who might regret now not being on Twitter, being able to defend himself, saying that Elon Musk has done this. All right, well, if you needed a better example, there you go. But I do have one more fake news story. I do have one more. This is an actual Moscow time problem. So the other ones, Kamala on water, Sam Harris projection, I'm just referring to some past episodes and taking a bit of credit for getting some predictions right? The one on Kamala is just that there's a controlled demolition of Biden, which we said from day when the first documents were found at his house, we said, controlled demolition, right? And still not sure if that's the case, but my worldview remains intact. I haven't had to change my opinion by anything that I'm seeing. I don't think I'm seeing anything that's creating cognitive dissonance in me. I continue to see headlines being generated on Biden. He's looking dumber and dumber. They're putting unflattering images of him and sharing them around the world. The one where he was just in a church in Atlanta and he looks out of place, and a bunch of those, right? So all I'm saying is it looks like the tone has changed and Water Lady is on her way. We'll see. Might not happen. We'll see. And then the other one on Elon, just because we were talking about projection, but this is actual dangerous Moscow time. This is dangerous Moscow time. And it's from our good friends, obviously, at the WAPO, right? The Washington Post, the employers of Taylor Lorenz and other people. The one that has the slogan, democracy dies in darkness, that, absolutely led the campaign to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. So Washington Post says this: as panicked states and colleges ban TikTok, students roll their eyes. More than 24 states have banned the lighthearted video app, citing fears of Chinese infiltration. But some experts call it overblown groupthink and a threat to online speech. The experts are back. The experts, right? So Alex Stapp says it's now overblown groupthink to believe the Chinese Communist Party shouldn't control the most popular social media app among young Americans. And Alex Stapp gets to the actual point. And he shares this from the Dispatch. The risks have been clear for years, and the Dispatch headline is "The real threat from TikTok has to do with its algorithm," right? Which is, again, nothing to do with the data security. As of course, the Washington Post article goes into, oh, what if China hacks our data? They are never acknowledging this context that it is the greatest brainwashing tool ever created. If you're going to create an ideal, if you got AI to create the ideal brainwashing tool, it would just be TikTok. That's what it would be. It wouldn't look like anything different than TikTok. It would be TikTok, right? There's nothing like you are not immune to it. I am not immune to it. TikTok has never touched a device of mine. I do not produce on TikTok. I don't go near it because it's too effective. Not because I think it's a waste of time and stupid and nothing like that. Right? That's not what I'm criticizing TikTok for. I'm criticizing TikTok for its power and how good it is and how addictive it would be, I would imagine. Just looking at what it does, I don't want it near me, right? I can't handle it. I don't want anyone being able to open up my brain and insert things into it. So I stay away. Now, I definitely am interested in learning new things, just not with the TikTok algorithm behind it. So it's just too good. It's too effective, and it has to be feared for everything that it is. So what we can tell from this, and I don't need to know more. I don't need to know anything else besides what I see here. Exactly what the headline says. You have states that are banning it. It looks like you have unanimity amongst most congressmen that this. We've heard it from all sides now. People have come out on the liberal side. It is known that it is a brainwashing tool, yet we get no real executive level articulation of this danger. And because of that, you can just assume corruption now. You don't have to look for proof. You don't need it. There's no need to have proof, right? People want this change. They want it banned, but you're getting articles like this, which says, don't look at it, don't worry about it, you're stupid, the kids think you're dumb, they rolled their eyes, get out of here, losers, right? So that whole way of seeing this thing is incredibly dangerous. And because of that, we can just assume. I'm not even going to look further. I don't need to look further. There's no need to look further than this. Somewhere along the line, we can see the corruption, and the corruption manifests in this kind of stuff. There's no other way this headline gets created. No other way. It's impossible, other than corruption. So, Washington Post, not that it's a surprise to people who listen to this show, right? We read Washington Post for the laughs, but this kind of stuff is the darkness that they refer to, right? This is how democracy dies. This is the kind of stuff right here. And then, let's go back to projection, right? Democracy dies in darkness, according to the people who are providing the darkness and turning out the lights. So, but it does give a pretty interesting context all of a sudden, right? For the kind of stuff we like to talk about on this show, which is the dexterity of American federalism and the capacity for individual states to experiment, change, go against the federal government. And Texas is one of those states already that has said they're going to ban TikTok from government devices. They're going to ban TikTok in certain instances. They're very aware, and the governor has expressed his understanding of the difference between the data security issue and the brainwashing issue. He's definitely pointed out that what you see in China with the way TikTok works there, right? School kids getting math versus the way it works here. We don't fat shame, right? But we've been told that there are many, it's very easy to find on TikTok, as only anecdotally. I have no idea if this is true. I'm not trying to point out anything about people who struggle with their weight, and only empathy on this show for that. But we do make a point on this show to talk about glorifying and calling being overweight healthy versus accepting people for who they are and being empathetic towards them. So we'll never call obesity healthy in any context on this show, right? So totally there for people who need just someone to talk to about how hard it is. And I said it on this show a million times. Addictions of all kinds are part of the operating system of human beings, unfortunately. And those who struggle with addiction to food, I only have sympathy, because I got lucky and I don't have it. And so it's tough with the world we live in today. And so we're not here to shame any of that. And if you are overweight and you watch the show, just to give you good information, talk about health, and absolutely not try to make you feel guilty in any way. It's hard, really hard. So this show should be a place where you can feel empathy for people who struggle with that. But again, we're never going to make it sound healthy, and we're never going to paint it in a picture that it isn't. It is unhealthy. That's just reality. And so I've heard anecdotally that a lot of this content with the glorifying of bigger people in terms of it, oh, it's beautiful, it's also a thing, it's healthy, da, 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 don't worry, people are just built that way. No, I've been told anecdotally that the algorithm itself, prefers that content to and directs that content to areas. That's totally anecdotal. I have no proof at all. There's no study I've ever seen that proves that. 100% just people saying this is what you get, this is what you get. I don't use TikTok, so I don't know. This is just stuff I've heard, and I pay attention to it, so that's what I've been told. So the governor in Texas has also underlined this contrast, right? That Chinese kids get a different experience than American kids. That's suspicious, and that's exactly what bending algorithms to national interests would look like. It would look exactly like that, right? Don't worry about it. Don't care about education. Don't, none of that stuff matters. Just eat, and it doesn't matter how big you get. So that's the problem. But again, that's the amazing thing about America, that you've got these states that can do different things. They don't necessarily have to listen to the federal government. A federal ban here would probably be helpful. Trump tried to do it in the 2020 election, and it didn't work out. If you remember, he tried to force Microsoft to buy the company. And I think they even did. I think they even officially bought it before the election. And then Gates probably watched too much TikTok and the big people videos and forgot about it. And just stayed content with his life. Who knows what's going on in that guy's head? But from then on, right, we didn't really hear about Microsoft buying it anymore. And it looks like the whole thing fell apart the minute the stewardship began, right? The minute Biden became steward, I didn't hear anything about Microsoft buying TikTok anymore. What happened there? What happened? We don't know. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter anymore. Assume corruption. We don't have to find out. We don't need the answer. You don't need it, right? If this is the kind of article coming out of the Washington Post and everything we've learned about the Washington Post, we can just assume corruption now. That's it, right? That's it. It's so bad that you can assume corruption. But here's the amazing thing, right? America, such a dexterous place, a state like America. Look at the contrast. You got Kamala on water, and you got the talking piece, the mouthpiece of DC, the Washington Post, saying TikTok, oh, you idiots, rolling their eyes, right? Well, what's Governor Abbott doing in Texas? Texas is sitting, listen to this, Texas is sitting on a historic budget surplus, right? They got the 30 trillion debt in the federal government, but Texas, rich, they have the historic surplus. What are they doing with their surplus? They're going to give it back to the taxpayers. They're going to provide Texans with the largest property tax cut in the history of their state, right? So money back in the pocket. And it's interesting, the type of, because property tax, of course, is one of the great reforms Bitcoiners, when we take over, when the cycle turns, that we have to institute at the local level in the United States, because this renting the land from municipal governments and state governments has got to go. I mean, even where I live in Vermont, the state taxes or the land taxes are pretty low compared to most places, but they're still atrocious. I mean, atrocious. If I was a senior, it would be rent. It's as much as rent, right? That's how I would see it anyway. I don't know if Social Security even pay. It's not even enough to pay for my monthly tax bill. Now I pay it in a year, but it's high enough to be what I've paid in rent a lot of times in my life. Right now, there's great advantages to living where I live. The property values are way lower. The cost of living is way lower. There's not as much consumerism around you in the first place. So There's a million trillion advantages to living where I live, so I'm not complaining about it. I'll pay the tax man and just get on with my life. But we got to change that, right? And what Governor Abbott is saying here is he's open to changing it, right? So that's exactly the kind of thinking we need, right? That's exactly what needs to happen in order. And now it's not all bad news with respects to the federal government and institutions. And some things they do well could help places like Texas. And this is the biggest story of the year that I'm about to tell you. I'm about to tell you the biggest story of the year, maybe of the decade. I'm about to tell you the biggest story, maybe of the decade, of the 10 years that we live in and all that's happened already, right? The Office of Nuclear Energy in the United States, right? And I've done several shows on how they rarely pass new systems for nuclear energy, how far behind the American bureaucracy is on this subject. But the Office of Nuclear Energy yesterday issued a final rule to the Federal Register to certify NuScale power and their small modular nuclear reactor. So it's the first SMR design certified by the NRC and just the 7th reactor design that they've cleared for the United States to be built. And the rule takes place pretty soon. So what does it mean? Well, I'll give you a few more details about the machine, about the systems themselves. And I'll go the other way around. I'll tell you what it means, and then I'll go back and tell you about a bit about the system. So it basically means that the SMR design can let me read this to you. This basically allows utilities to reference NuScale's SMR design when applying for a license to build and operate a reactor with the design. So anyone can take this design and build it. They have to pay NuScale, of course, and NuScale, I imagine, will build it for them. But they can take the design and it's already pre-approved, right? So it becomes the first SMR design certified by the NRC and just the 7th, as I said earlier. And Joshua Steinman, who we've talked about here a few times, says, okay, so this is actually a big deal. The NRC authorized NuScale Power's small modular reactor design, and he says it's a total white pill. Now we just need to start building them. So what are they? And I'm going to get back to now we just need to start building them. They give about 50 megawatts, which is the size of a major mine, right? A major Bitcoin mine. 50 megawatts is about what the big, what are they called again? The one in anyway. There's one in Canada. I've been to the mine. It's great. It's right near my house. I don't know why I can't remember the name right now of the company. So that's a big one, and it's 50 megawatts, right? That's what they get from the Quebec, their deal with the Quebec utility. They can upgrade up to 77 megawatts, right? So they can upgrade up to 77 megawatts, which is enough for a small town, a major Bitcoin mine, or both, right? So that brings me to, again, what Joshua Steinman said. Now we just need to start building them. So already you have places like Texas, right? And we've talked about the Texas energy bill, or the Texas energy proposal related to Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. Very similar to what we mentioned on the show yesterday with New Hampshire starting to experiment with, right? And both of them are load stabilization, and that's what you have to do with nuclear power, because the problem with nuclear power is that you need a constant consumer of the energy. So even night-day stuff doesn't always work for nuclear energy because they got to get rid of so much. You can't turn it down, you can't shut it off, you can't do any of those things. So you need something that can just swallow it. Now you can get rid of the energy. People do that all the time, right? They just get rid of it, they put it in the ground, no problem. But again, having an anchor tenant as a Bitcoin miner for one of these projects is something you're likely to see from Governor Sununu in New Hampshire. That's exactly what the mandate of that study that he asked them to do will look at, right? About load balancing and financing of smaller build-outs of energy systems with Bitcoin miners as the anchor tenants. And you take a place like Texas, right, who is so aggressive in adding more capacity to their grid, different than Quebec. Quebec, you know, I often compare Quebec and Texas. Quebec is so blessed by the hydropower that it has that we only have one nuclear reactor, which we only use for fun and it's not real. It's no houses get energy from it in Quebec. They use it in case they ever needed it, but it's not something that's integral to our grid. It's been there forever. It's the Canadian design. They have it. They never. It's not plugged in type of thing. I think it runs all the time, but it doesn't. I don't know what it does. It's not part of our energy matrix in Quebec. We are 100% hydropower. Quebec just doesn't have to get as aggressive as Texas does, because Texas has the oil, the wind, all that stuff. And Texas now, you're looking at the most aggressive energy market and energy entrepreneur market in the world that now has a proposal that suggests if Bitcoin is used to finance any of these things, like having an anchor tenant that is a Bitcoin miner, behind a nuclear reactor, they will get tax rebates of an important amount. So that's part of what they suggest in this proposal in Texas, is that if Bitcoin is part of the financing of it. So, I want to make a distinction, right? I want to make a distinction that we often talk about the energy and Bitcoin mining. So the excess energy, and use it for Bitcoin mining, stabilize the grid, right? You can think of that as like nuclear powered Bitcoin mining, right? That is a real, like a thing that is already kind of happening. Compass Mining has a deal, or with Terawatt, or somebody's doing it. And we've talked about it on the show a few times. But so nuclear powered Bitcoin mining is a thing and is important, but not as important, I will suggest, as Bitcoin powered nuclear energy, right? So nuclear powered Bitcoin mining, a total thing. We already see it. It's out there. It's an idea with a lot of traction and legs. Saying is the more important idea, the one that will actually cause hyper-Bitcoinization, is Bitcoin powered nuclear energy, right? So it's sort of an inversion of the common held commercial relationship between Bitcoin mining and nuclear energy. I'm saying there's a more important commercial relationship, right? The financing part. And we're going to start seeing it. Bitfarms, yeah, sorry, Bitcoin Graffiti says Bitfarms. Yes, exactly, it is Bitfarms. So when this guy Josh Steinman asks, now we just need to start building them, who's going to build them exactly? Is it going to be like the municipalities who have no money and have to get all this property tax and no one's paying their taxes, right? And that's another story that we're going to get to in a second. This new proposal for the end of federal income tax and the end of the IRS, and its replacement with a sales tax, which is being proposed right now in the US Congress. So, the constraints coming to governments are going to be greater, just given their track record. I mean, the number of people who are sick of clown world, sick of giving morons their money, is growing every day. Every day you get another water and stand in front of the face reality Kamala story, right? Every day you get another Washington Post story trying to tell you and gaslight you, right? All of this stuff, people saying, oh, we never, you get teachers unions now saying, we never prevented kids from going to school. That never happened, right? Just outright denying what we all know happened. So the appetite amongst people for these morons is at its all-time low. And so their capacity to be the ones, like Joshua Steinman says here, just need to start building them, might not be there, which is why Bitcoin incentive models and Bitcoin ambition for a future might end up leading the way here, right? These other guys are going to be too worried about if Greta is okay with where it's built, and if there's enough people of color that are hired and they're going to get energy in the area. Maybe that could be an important concern. I'm not saying that's not an important concern. The Greta one, not so much, but you want everyone to get the new energy, and you don't want it just to go to a couple rich people who get even cheaper energy, right? So one would imagine there's going to be some kind of social component to a bunch of this, but that's what Bitcoiners don't care about, right? You tell me where to build it. Tell me where to build it. All right, we just want to build. We don't care. There doesn't have to be anyone around. If you tell me we can't build it, we'll just go to where there's no people and we can build it, because we don't need the people. We don't need them. The people are bonus, right? The people are bonus in these systems. Eventually, it's going to come to them, right? Eventually, it's going to come to them. But as it is, this stuff can get built sans people, without people. So you get this now contrast between what's going on in a state like Texas where there are entrepreneurs, the government is getting out of the way of financing, getting out of the way of Bitcoin-powered nuclear energy, and saying, well, we'll even give you tax benefits, right, to do it. At the same time, you have an actual national level conversation now about getting rid of the income tax, right, to replace it with the sales tax. Now, I'll give you a couple of predictions on that. I don't think it's going to go through. It's dead on arrival in the Senate, but the conversation is starting. That's wonderful news. It's just wonderful news, right? We've talked a lot of hyper-Bitcoinization will knock out both the Federal Reserve and the income tax system. Watching them both suffer now is again, in our worldview. It's what we think is coming. It's what Bitcoiners have said is coming for a long time. I don't know the difference. I'll explain it briefly. A consumption tax would actually lower our consumption, right? It would stop you from buying so much crap, right? That's mostly the way governments made money before, tariffs on the borders and some consumption taxes. Now, consumption taxes touch everybody because, it doesn't matter how much money you make. So that's good in some ways, right? And it allows people to save money again because it's not taxing your income. So you can actually not consume, save your money, and not just give it to government. So it's a big, big deal. I don't think it's happening, right? I don't think it's going to happen this time. And I would imagine that states would move in and, claw some of that back. But in Canada, we have a GST, a goods and services tax. And they did exactly that. So they lowered it once, the consumption tax, and the states just grabbed the portions that were taken off and added it to their own consumption tax, which is fine. It's still a consumption tax. We never got rid of our income tax. We said we were going to get rid of the income tax or lower it anyway. We didn't. We just have more taxes. So, and it's big in Canada. The consumption tax is 15%. Right? It's a lot. It's a lot. So we have a large consumption tax, and you can imagine, it wouldn't go as they've said, but nevertheless, the conversation is there and it's changing the dynamic, right? And just like we've been talking about for a while, this top-down structure of processes, of how we get things done, right? Really being questioned by the failures of the media, the criminals in office, and all the terrible results and the discord that they've sowed in the world today, right? Things are a little sketchy out there. So that's the competition in the end, right? We're up against this system. Can they build the nuclear reactors? I doubt it. I doubt they're going to be able to get their ducks in a row. Can Bitcoiners do it? Absolutely, right? As long as we have a place like Texas, as long as we have a place like New Hampshire that's saying, hey, come do this. We're going to actually even give you more incentives to do this. The path will be open to us. And there's the brilliance of the American system, right? It allows for that flexibility. And even if you want to, again, think about the competition here, right? Washington Post, all these folks, right? Woke up just yesterday with a whole bunch of pink slips. They're firing people as it is, right? Their model is already broken. So this is what happened here, right? Jeff Bezos sets off a fresh wave of panic at the Washington Post by unexpectedly turning up for morning editorial meeting as staff brace for more layoffs. So Jeff Bezos showed up at the Washington Post while they're telling us to not fucking worry about TikTok, and said, what's up here, guys? And we get all these tech jobs. Like, we don't like layoffs in the economy. We don't like it. But this is what restructuring the economy looks like. It looks like Google, all these stories on Twitter this morning, these people, I was at Google for 20 years, thought I had it made, thought I had the greatest job. I was kicked out last night and didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. I have to work on Monday. They fired a bunch of people yesterday from Google, right? Google. Facebook do the same. It's up and down. All of these companies, Amazon. So, Bezos is firing in all his companies. He's firing in Amazon. He's firing in the Washington Post. And again, I did the FedWatch show with Ansel Linder on Thursday. And he continues to make the point that the Fed is most interested in demand destruction and culling the workforce. They're actually interested in fighting inflation. He said it and brought the receipts. I wasn't aware it was so clear that they're going to fight inflation with jobs. Right? Actually, job numbers are what they're concerned about. They want fewer people to have jobs, believe it or not. That's what he's convinced about, and he convinced me. It isn't really just about making sure we consume less or how much is energy and They know they can get it done and slay inflation by targeting employment numbers, which is awful because truthfully, I don't care about any other numbers that come out of the Federal Reserve, right? And all of their stats page, the St. Louis Fed and all of their numbers. You know, I spent a lot of time on these pages and used them for many years, but all that data is garbage. It's just garbage. The only one that I actually thought mattered to tell about the state of the economy was jobs. That's the only one I looked at. Sorry, I looked at all the numbers. It's the only one I looked at with attention and care for the actual number reported. Where if it went bad, I would say, well, things aren't going to go well now. And if it went well, I went, well, things are way better than they're saying, right? So I really only cared about employment because that's really all you need to know and all you can really guess from if you're one of these economists, right? Are people working, yes or no? And that will tell you everything you need to know about optimism and because in the end, these are psychological systems, right? The economy is a psychological engine and it perpetuates forward based on the psychological conditions of the state, world, everything at that time. And again, that's how and why I say Bitcoin has not just a good chance or not of winning. The chances of Bitcoin winning are greater, much greater than these people, I would say, right? The people firing everyone and the systems that don't have anyone incentivized to do anything well. These things are just decaying before our eyes. Now there's brute force, there's strength, there's tools in their toolkit that Bitcoiners don't have, right? So it is an unfair fight, but it doesn't matter. I still think the coordination effects of Bitcoin and the incentives mean it's actually more likely now that we're going to win. It's more likely. I can't see it any other way. If we can figure out the nuclear mining, we win. If we can figure out how to price energy markets and everyone else referencing energy markets in Bitcoin, we win. Are they going to keep referencing it in the dollar as it fights with BRICS and whatever else is coming out? And the end of the monopolistic market on oil dollars, that's broken. Right? So all the things, all the toys are gone. The tools that are left are rough and tough, but can they really use them? I mean, we continue to hear Biden talking about the gun law stuff and everyone laughing when he says, oh, you know, how are you going to fight against the US government got F-15s and you got guns? Well, has any war machine ever in the history of the world been able to take over an area where everyone's armed and you can sit on a street corner with a gun? It never works. The airplanes can glass places. We can glass a place. We're not going to glass America. Right? America's not going to glass America. In the end, right, the F-15s can't do anything against the American people. It's not going to work that way. It just can't. And because America has the guns, they have the freedom, and they're going to eventually, in some place or another, win the race to build these energy systems. The morons aren't fast enough. They're not going to get it done. They're too worried about what people are saying and teenagers rolling their eyes about what adults are saying about TikTok, right? So, and then they're firing all these people, right? So the consumption tax and the federal income tax and that whole conversation, again, that's that psychology engine. Those things are mortal wounds for that system. To even open up this conversation, right? We saw it when people started talking about not paying their taxes anymore because they were able to print so much money. Once the psychological constraints are opened, you can start seeing the truth. Indeed, why do we pay all this income tax if you can just print the money? If it doesn't matter, okay, great, do it. What's up? So there you go. Now, how are we going to know? And this is, if you don't have a chance to see the Once Bitten podcast, we talk about a lot of things on it, right? The one I mentioned earlier. But I did start talking about, he named it for me, the Nakamoto Trail, right? The Nakamoto Trail. So we can see things like Bitcoin-powered nuclear mining and all that as a clear sign hyper-Bitcoinization is happening. It'll be confirmed when energy markets are measured in Bitcoin. But another way they can be confirmed, is with a spread of a type of voluntarism, a type of anarcho-capitalism system, which could show actual physical civil engineering results, and I'll explain. So I've mentioned it before on the show that one of the ideas I think would really be compelling for Bitcoin to end World War III would look a little bit like this. And this is how we would recognize World War III is over. The end of World War II was when Eisenhower came home, became president, right? The supreme commander came home, was elected president, and built the Eisenhower Highway Network, right? And this is a major civil engineering feat in America. It's all the autoroutes, it's all the highways that go between all the states, all of those highways that are pretty good. Some of them are in better conditions than others, and some are not as in good condition as they were in the 50s when Eisenhower built it. But nevertheless, it changed the face of the country and is one of the things that came to the people of America. It's one of the things they won, let's say. We talk a lot about how America won World War II, but Americans lost. Well, they get to get some stuff, right? And one of the things they got was this highway network, and it was excellent, right? It was the best thing. Every American did their summer vacations on it, and helped you get around, helped you be free, right? It helped create that whole image of Americans free on the road, cheap gas, pedal to the metal, all that kind of stuff. So one thing I think Bitcoin still hasn't really shown, the one card we haven't really shown, right? We haven't really shown this card yet because there's not a lot of examples in history, and it's voluntariness, anarcho-capitalism working the way it was intended. And because when people are anarchists, what do you mean? What are you talking about here? So one of the, and this is, as I said, one of the ways we'll recognize over when you see Bitcoin used as a financing tool for a network, what Princey called the Nakamoto Trail. So a network of not side of the road, dedicated electric bike lanes, right? Dedicated electric bike lanes. And we already have one basically from my house to New York City in Vermont, so right on the Canadian border. I can get to New York City. My friend, my partner in this project, biked up from New York City to meet me in Vermont, and just to see what the condition of most of the trail was. The whole way up the Hudson, it's amazing. When you get to my area, it's great. It's old rail track and rough material, a little bumpy, a lot of dirt. But the good news is, on an e-bike, an electric bike, you actually don't need a common track engineering. And that's where the voluntarism comes in, right? That's where voluntarism comes in. I think you could have a voluntary Bitcoin toll, just throw some sats to go on, right? And you can start using that Bitcoin that is given to the network voluntarily. There's no cost for using the network that's there, but you can take that Bitcoin and create cash flow off of it, and take that cash flow and collateralize it and actually start paying people to develop more track. So if someone wants to develop track to their town and add stuff and get people to come on the bikes to their town, well, there's a way to get paid. And because the track doesn't have to be engineered to any standard that that the Eisenhower network did, you actually don't need to have a public works project. It doesn't have to be top down. Anyone can do it. It can be organic. As long as money's coming into the track that's there, you can start lending it out to build more track. And then now that there's more track, you can earn more money and build more track. So I continue to believe that we will show, and the reason I like this idea is because you can actually show how voluntarism works. We have to start showing it works. There is no large-scale example of the political system that Bitcoin is trying to manifest in the world anywhere. We don't really see it in any tangible way. So just as the engineering network of highways signaled the reconstruction of the world after World War II for Americans, I think we can do the same in World War III. And when you think of, even the NuScale of the NuScale is the name of that nuclear reactor that they've just invented, right? You can start to see that e-bikes and the electrification of that whole system and the build out of that network would actually change the scale of America considerably. And what I mean by that is, I can imagine, so one of the nicest things about Holland and Japan is that in Japan, you can do exactly what I'm just describing, but on pedal bikes, right? You can go around all the towns on dedicated bike lanes, dedicated bike paths, and it's so nice. It is so pleasant. The whole thing is built for this really great infrastructure, and it's just really relaxing. And they all have those ups and baskets. You can leave your bike. It's still a high trust society, Japan. It's amazing. You have no idea what you're missing, right? Where I live in Vermont and Quebec are also still high trust. Like I don't even own a lock on my door where I grew up, where my parents live. There's no lock, right? You can't lock the door. In Vermont, no one cares, right? No one locks their door. You get the fentanyl people now. You got to be a little weary. There are criminals around now, actually, but it's not that bad, right? It's not. It's nothing like New York City. Already in Japan, high trust society, you can park your bike with all of your groceries in bags in a basket and go into a restaurant or a coffee shop and just spend an hour and then come back out and all your bags are just still there. Like, no, you wouldn't even think that someone would take it. There's not even a thought, right? Just do whatever you think is easiest and it'll just happen, right? So, but Japan, of course, was able to do this because the scale of the country is quite small, and the pedal bikes allowed you to still get around. These were not huge expanses. What's going to happen in America is you can actually build them across the whole country. So I imagine one day the whole point of America is going to be people coming from around the world to land in America, buy an inexpensive electric tricycle, bicycle, golf cart style, whatever, and just tour the most beautiful country in the world with all of the parks and all of the nature and all of the coastline and the weather changes and all of those things, right? And like France is very beautiful too, and France's scale is so small, right? And just like France, America has everything in its borders, but the scale is much bigger. And this type of energy and this type of transit will, weirdly, it's a slow transit, but will actually shrink the country in important ways. It'll make it easy and inexpensive to go everywhere, if a little slower, but you can still get around and visit the whole place and blah, blah, blah. So, the NuScale of mining could lead to a new scale of transit, a new scaling for America, right? It's a totally different relationship between the federal government and the states that are about to manifest, probably because of good policy and not good policy. You go look at California, huge deficits now. Compare that to Texas, right? Texas is more poised to build these nuclear reactors and already looking for Bitcoin involvement, have the money to kick this thing off. So totally different relationship, totally different scenario. And, we're coming. It's coming. It's happening. It's happening, guys. I had one more thing. I'm trying to remember what it was that I wanted to mention about Nakamoto Trail. Something about getting around. I don't remember. It'll come up tomorrow. I'll think of it tomorrow. We got Jerome Bowell says he wants to feel pain. Yeah. Big one graffiti. Pound the like button. We got from his ivory tower, your pain looks pretty insignificant. Yeah, I didn't know he was the most Wall Street lawyer that ever had the job. Jerome Powell said a year ago he's concerned about an overheated job market. Yeah, so he said about fixing it. Isn't that bad? Isn't that bad? Bitcoin Graffiti asks the tolls. The toll is voluntarism. You pay if you feel like. Obviously with Bitcoin, because it's a push transaction, you don't have to sign up or anything, right? It's just a container to receive donations. So some people might pay like a whole Bitcoin to ride the trail just because they feel like seeing it grow. I don't expect everyone to do that, of course, but I expect a few people who were, entrepreneur paid roads, the tolls. No, I don't. Oh yeah, guessing. So you were guessing about what my missing topic was. No, it was something. I don't remember now. I don't remember. It was fun. The idea came into my head. That's why I'm trying. But it was a spontaneous thing. It's not in my notes. It was a spontaneous thing. I guess NuScale. Here's one. This isn't what I wanted to mention, but I saw this. This was from 1918. So I just wanted to bring this back to the conversations we've been having the past couple of days, and it related to NuScale as well. This is not what I was trying to think of, but it's one thing I missed in my notes today. So I saw this on Twitter, and it's from the U.S. Department of Agriculture from 1918. So we're 6 years into the Federal Reserve, and the mind hasn't quite changed yet. And what they said here, so it's not even so much the details. I just want to give you a sense of the I just want to give you a sense of the changing mindset, right? So the headline is this: Uncle Sam to keep hens and raise chickens. 2 hens in the backyard for each person will keep a family in fresh eggs. Even in time of peace, a profitable recreation. In time of war, a patriotic duty. So imagine there was a time when the system was still trying to get you to do things on a scale that would have helped you individually. And now, could you imagine in World War III such a thing coming out? Right? This would be like COVID being dealt with by saying it's your duty to go get exercise. That never happened. It was our duty to get a needle, right? So there you go. All right, team. That's all I got for today. I'll remember the thing. I'll bring it up. Remember, no show tomorrow because no electricity. I cannot. My cell coverage here is not strong enough to be able to do a show. So I'll be back Monday. Probably have a board. I'll miss you guys. It'll be weird tomorrow not doing the show without it being Christmas or New Year's or me traveling or something. So see you Monday. See you Monday. Be good. Oh, one more comment from P-Man Van. Hold on. Powell legacy, putting people in the streets, sad. Yeah. Cheers all. Yeah, it is sad.